think teenagers find it really hard to trust one person and open up. And I think it just starts to build up and causes them stress and anxiety. And I think the reason why we don't open up is because we're scared. We're scared to get judged.
I think the pressures young people are facing are huge and complex, and I'm not a young person. I think the pressures through education are unparalleled. I think the pressures around adolescence and teenagehood have been in place for decades in our modern developed society, but I feel that the pressures of the media and social media add new dimensions to those.
It's they always think that they have to be like the people in the movies or the people that they see on social media. And I think people are pressured by that, think they always need to dress like everyone else, look like everyone else, and act like everyone else.
We know from the data we see that there's rising issues with emotional well-being in children and young people. We're seeing rising incidents of mental ill health, of self-harm behaviours. And once we started talking to people in our system and talking to parents, teachers and young people themselves, we realised it genuinely was an issue for us here in South West London as well. We realised we needed to do more to support our children and young people's mental health, and we realised the best place to do that was in schools, where they face a lot of pressure and where they spend a huge amount of their time. So we launched a programme working really in partnership with multiple organisations across our sector, but the new partnership for us was working with schools directly.
Well, emotional resilience is really important, not just at a young age, but also, with staff as well. So it's not just looking at children, it's also looking at the whole school. When you talk about a whole school approach, we're not just talking about young people in our schools, we're talking about every adult in the school.
Another big stress which goes around the schools is exam stress. As exams have got harder and there's more to do and there's more expectations from parents and friends and teachers, which put more pressure on you and stress, and all of it combined is just like a whole explosion in your brain.
It's a bit of a catch-22 in mental health, where services are geared up for moderate and more severe ends of managing mental health. And so sometimes there's a bit of a paradox with children in that they have to get worse before they reach thresholds for treatment. So the aim of this programme is to really try and catch difficulties at a much lower level before they escalate up.
Sometimes people have the need to self-harm as they feel as a relief. They're practically opening themselves up to themselves. They feel some sort of control over it.
I used to be bullied around year 7, and people call me things like I'm just ugly, I'm gay and that stuff, and I feel really upset about this, and I would cry a lot and say things like, oh, I'm not perfect and that stuff. And now I got this confidence, and it's so helpful that I made friends. I'm able to communicate with people better.
The programme is a whole school approach to emotional well-being. That involves schools working together, setting the ethos and policy for their schools around emotional well-being. It involves us putting health resource into schools, specifically in the form of mental health support teams. We've commissioned online support and peer support for our young people. We're going to be working with parents. We're working with young people themselves to understand the language they use around mental health, to make sure that they're involved in designing these programmes with us so that they work really well. We're working with research partners to evaluate the effectiveness of the programme we're running, and we're also doing a lot of work with teachers to raise their awareness, to train them in mental health first aid, and to support them with their own mental health so that they're well equipped to support the children themselves.
I think this is really a transformation, because we started off with a blank sheet of paper. So there wasn't anything about this is what we must do. There was a lot of curiosity around what the problems were, and there was a lot of joint working and willingness to actually try something different, which is what excited me to this role.
So in our school, we've been lucky enough to host 3 educational wellbeing practitioners. Those are people who are directly employed by the NHS to work with our young people. And we wouldn't have access to those professionals had we not been part of this.
So the EWP, so it's a new role, and the idea of their role is that they support young people and parents of children who are experiencing mild to moderate mental health difficulties. So they work in primary schools, and in the primary schools they work with parents, and then they offer support in secondary schools, so they work one-to-one with teenagers who are experiencing anxiety and low mood. And again, the intervention is quite similar, and that is trying to teach the children some practical tools to manage their difficulties. And they also offer some workshops, so whole group workshops, which we've developed within the service, and then some targeted groups as well.
I think for me personally, working with young people, they have this amazing ability to change, and I think that in itself is a really rewarding job to work within, because you can see that change in them, and you know that moving forward there's going to be, you know, that it's going to help them in their lives. I've already had a couple of cases where the outcomes have been really, really good, and I know that I've worked to change those people's lives, and that's so meaningful to me.
I really enjoy the role. It's quite varied. Being the first cohort, there are always teething problems, but I think if you can come up with any role where it combines education and the NHS to get them working together is definitely a positive.
I think having people that you can open up to and like you can talk to, like it makes you feel like you're not lifting like the weight of your problems by yourself, and you have someone like to ease the pain of like the weight and stuff.
I think it's always best to try and talk to someone when you're feeling really low. Like, you feel as if you've reached the lowest point in your life, but you most probably haven't. But the best thing is you just gotta talk to someone, like talk to your friends, like your really close friends, because they know you as much as you know yourself.
In the first phase of Trailblazer funding, we got funding for 3 of our London boroughs, so an extra £1.85 million of investment into Merton, Sutton and Wandsworth to support our whole school approach and to build the mental health support teams going into schools. In the second round of Trailblazer funding, we've also been successful, so we've got another £4.3 million of funding coming into South West London, and that's going to support the other 3 boroughs that we have with their existing clusters of schools, and it's extra funding for youth violence in Croydon, for special educational needs across Merton and Sutton, for BAME young people in Wandsworth, and also funding for further education colleges across South West London, which is really exciting because that's a new development for us working with that older age group.
I think beyond the programme we've introduced the brain training for our staff. We've had Fantastic Fred in today, which has been absolutely amazing, and primary schools have attended that.
Drum roll please, ladies and gentlemen, that's more like it! I present to you Fantastic Fred! Ta-da! Now, with the help of Fantastic Fred, I am going to give you the 4 keys to good mental health. If we don't have good mental health, we won't be able to experience the world properly and be fantastic.
I'm really excited about the programme. I can see already that it's making a big difference in the schools that we're working with. They've changed the way they think about emotional well-being. The teachers are telling us they feel much more confident in dealing with issues as they arise. We're getting really good feedback from young people as well. We know that what we're providing has evidence behind it, so they're effective interventions. We know as well that we're putting a huge amount of extra resource into emotional well-being in terms of mental health support teams in the schools, in terms of some of the resources we're buying in, such as online support and resources to be used in PHSE lessons. So I think we're going to see a huge difference in our young people's mental well-being across the whole of South West London.
Systemically, there has been a significant amount of change within the system. So schools working together on this shared agenda is certainly a very new concept. We gathered together schools within the cluster on a half-termly basis to look at what good practice there is, to look at how we can share what we already do as schools.
What we've tried to do is destigmatise someone saying, I feel I've got a mental health problem. And I think that's really important. I'm not saying it's trendy to have a mental health problem, but to destigmatise it and people to feel comfortable, no one's going to put a label on you, whether you're a young person or an adult, is really important, and how the support is given is vital.
It's about raising children to be resilient, but it's also about enabling parents to be resilient parents. Because when you become a parent, there is no program that actually prepares you for parenting. We're giving opportunities to parents in primary schools to gain some of those parenting skills that they may need for their children now and in the future.
My aspiration is that more young people would feel safe and confident in school, that therefore they would probably achieve better in terms of their outcomes. I'd also like to hope that some of the local area reporting of things like self-harm and things like GP referrals was going to reduce over time. The complication is that this is a system with lots of moving parts. Any of our experiences are not the product of just our workplace or just our family setting, and that's even more true of young people. But I think if this goes right, and if we continue to develop and learn, I think those could be the ultimate outcomes of this activity.